Welcome everyone to our ASA New South Wales ACT chapter conversation. First of all, we want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that you're joining us from for this ASA chapter conversation. In my case, I'm on the unceded land of the Cammeraygal people of the Ku-ring-gai Nation at the north shore of beautiful Sydney Harbour. For thousands of years, they have gathered, shared stories, fostered connections on this land, a tradition that we want to continue while paying respects to their elders past and present. Feel free to acknowledge in the chat where you are joining us from, also maybe with your institutions and what you're doing. So my name is Beate Müller. I work at University of Technology in Sydney. I'm the ASA New South Wales ACT co-chair, together with Tanya Lawless from University of Canberra. I'm joined here today with our deputy chair, Bonnie Dean from the University of I assume that most of you know her very well, and also by fellow chapter members from across the New South Wales and the ACT, and I assume also many other chapter ASIN chapter members and board members here today. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you all. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we kick off. Obviously, if your Zoom is failing, just join us through the same link. Or if everything fails, if my Zoom fails, then just wait for an email with instructions. We'll go for an hour. The first half an hour, we'll hear from our three expert presenters. The second half an hour, we'll break out into smaller groups and do a bit of networking and talk about today's topics. Obviously, you're encouraged to ask questions. I think the chat would be a good way of getting these questions out, and we'll try our best to answer them all. This is recorded, and so try to keep yourself muted while we're presenting, obviously. So the purpose of today is to shine a new light on important will principles that are often broadly defined as the before, during, and after of quality will support. Our three experts, who are also our chapter members, will give you new insights into will initiatives they implemented that are all grounded in research and quality will. We'll hear from each of them for about 8 minutes, and then in the second half, do the activities. So our three presenters will introduce themselves. So just be a little bit patient while we switch over presenters and switch the sharing of their screens. So thanks a lot for coming. And I'll hand over to Julia, our first presenter.
Thanks, Beate. There we go. So hi, everyone. I'm Julia Caldicott. I have been a Will academic with Southern Cross University for about 20 years. I'm part of the Faculty of Business, Law and Arts and predominantly work with the business and management students. So I'm excited to talk about an initiative where we embed a student alumni mentoring program into the curriculum. So I'll be speaking from that mentoring program being in the preparation stage of work integrated learning, but obviously mentoring can be at any of the three main will stages, so pre, during or post work integrated learning. And we'll be focusing on placement as the form of work integrated learning, but mentoring is also applicable for other forms of work integrated learning like consultancies or projects as well. So can I please have a show of hands if people have ever been a mentor or a mentee? So I've had a couple of really valuable mentors in my life, and I think that's probably the background to where I've really come from in terms of this initiative. So a couple of those mentors are with us in the session today, and they know how valuable their guidance has been for me. So we're really fortunate in the faculty to have a core undergraduate unit where we embed in, it's a preparation will unit basically. It's deemed as an intermediate unit in the business degree, but it's also offered as a university-wide elective. So it it is grounded in organisational behaviour and career development learning, and it's a prerequisite unit for our capstone work integrated learning, and that can be the students can choose to do an internship placement or industry projects units. So about 3 years ago, we transitioned to our new pedagogical model called the Southern Cross model, where we have our units in 6-week terms. And so this professional development unit is offered twice per year. So that's in March and in October. And we found that we were constantly referring to the wonderful team in careers and employability at Southern Cross University and the resources and the initiatives that they were offering, but found that not all of our students were participating in that. So we wanted everyone to experience those initiatives, and one of those was the Bright Futures mentoring program, which was a partnership between careers and alumni. So this wonderful mentoring program was sitting there university-wide. It would have approximately 100 students, but it was extracurricular. So we thought about embedding it into our core unit. So we added another 145 students per year for those students who are undertaking the professional development unit. So the underpinning principles, I guess there are some references there if you're interested. So we know that mentors offer career, psychological and/or instrumental support to an individual. So the mentors in our case are alumni, so they're really an untapped resource that can really provide our students with some great career, psychological or instrumental support. We know that, and lots of people have written about it, including Bonnie Dean and Denise Jackson and Ruth Bridgestock, amongst many others, about how important it is or how valuable it is if we can embed career development learning into the curriculum. So we really leveraged what was available already with our careers department. Research also says that students from equity groups really underutilise career services, so this initiative seek to address that. It's a form of active learning and it's very authentic, and mentors are really taking a non-evaluative approach, so students can sometimes feel more comfortable in discussing things with those mentors. We also know that students who make informed career choices have more success, enhanced wellbeing and work performance, so it's something of tremendous value, we believe. And it really subscribes to relationship-rich education, so where that education prioritises human connections in education. So how did we go about doing it? So it was about moulding the existing program into our curriculum. So the students are in the hot seat, but we give lots of support, obviously. The students need to shortlist their preferred mentors from a pretty extensive list, and that forms a component of their first assessment, which is due at the end of week 2. So remember, we've only got the 6-week terms. The wonderful staff in careers weave their magic and match up the students to the mentors. Students are then responsible for initiating contact, but we give them lots of advice and some templates to how you would approach them in an email and what things you would say if you were to phone them. They're to establish a mutually convenient meeting time. They're to have a meeting with their mentor, in most cases that's Zoom, but if they're living in the same location, that could be in person. And because we've got the 6-week terms, we stipulate that a minimum of 1 meeting is required. Students then reflect on their mentoring experience, and that's part of their second assessment, and then they're responsible for either finalising or extending the relationship. So the minimum is that 1 meeting and the components there that I've talked about, but students are given the option, if the mentor agrees, to continue with that relationship, and we've seen that lots of students find it so valuable that they do want to continue it on into their internship placement. So the benefits that students tell us that they've gained from this initiative: increased confidence, enhanced employability skills, gaining career and industry insights. They've got this renewed optimism and study motivation. So the alumni has become our champions really at talking about how wonderful work integrated learning is. So they also give them some application and interview assistance, talk about what further study requirements they are. So we have business students, so sometimes the mentors say that really to get ahead, maybe you need to do an MBA in the future. There's networking opportunities that come from it. And some of our students have actually gained internship or employment opportunities from it. So there's always a downside. There are some challenges. Sometimes students lack motivation. They just see it as another assessment task. But in the student feedback, we do get that some of them were really dubious about it to start with, but having undertaken it, they're really appreciative, and that they may not have done the extracurricular mentoring program. So embedding it in was forcing them to do it, but they're thankful for that. Some of the students lack some of the preparation, so sometimes they're just really focused on the assessment tasks and not really exploring all that the mentor can offer them during that meeting. Some of them, unfortunately, are a little bit unprofessional. Maybe they don't hold the appointment or don't email in a professional way. So there's obviously the risk of some reputational damage there. From the mentors side, sometimes mentors are just really busy and the students find it difficult to contact them. So sometimes they relay that back to us and we can intervene if need be. Some time zones, we have a lot of online students, so there are time zone issues to keep in mind. And sometimes the mentors have really high expectations. That's good as long as that support is there. So it's about us monitoring those or managing those expectations as well. Challenges from the university side, resourcing, like our team in careers just do an amazing job at resourcing it and matching the students and the alumni and troubleshooting any issues that come to hand. The number of industry-specific available mentors can sometimes be a challenge. Obviously, we would like to mentor an alumni student with an accounting student with an accountant, but that's not always possible, just depending on the availability of mentors during that term. And as I said, about 3 years ago, we transitioned to the Southern Cross model, which is 6-week terms. At first, we thought that was going to be challenging because in the previous semester-based approach, we had 3 mentor meetings. But in some ways, having just the one meeting lessens the obligations to meet with them. So sometimes that's better from the mentoring for the mentors as well, that they don't have so much time to devote, but just one meeting is certainly doable. So there are some references if anyone's interested in some of those references that I referred to earlier, and I'm really interested to hear about anyone else's experiences with mentoring. Please connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email via my email address, and obviously we've got the breakout rooms coming up where we can further explore this. But in a nutshell, this has been a really valuable initiative, both from the mentors' perspective and the students, and we've really enjoyed it. It's certainly paying dividends for the students. They seem to be a lot more prepared, a lot better prepared when they start their WIL placement or their industry projects. So I talked briefly about reflecting. The students need to reflect on their mentoring experience, but I'm going to hand over now to Laura, who's going to talk about reflection in a lot more detail.
Thank you, Julia. Hi, everybody. My name's Laura Rook, and I am a senior lecturer in the School of Business in the Faculty of Business and Law at the University of Wollongong. And today I'm going to talk to you about facilitating reflection in WIL and talk about a project which is currently towards the end, but underway here at the University of Wollongong. So as many of you would know, work integrated learning programs, or a core practice in work integrated learning programs, is the integration of meaningful reflective activities. And this is to enable students to make sense of their authentic experiences. We know from research that reflection promotes the application of discipline, knowledge and skills, students being able to articulate significant learning moments. They can get an increase, their confidence increases, and it goes towards the development of their professional identities. However, we also know that students experience various challenges, and for those who in the room who have taught any subject that has reflection in it, you will have probably experienced at some point difficulty with students being able to move beyond descriptions of events towards making those deeper connections to theory, work and life. And so what we've experienced and what the literature tells us is that they find it challenging to shift from that descriptive analysis to forward thinking and moving the focus from that immediate concerns about themselves now to future possibilities. So this also makes it difficult for the educators, such as ourselves, to design reflective assessments. But research does advocate for providing a balanced approach to reflection in the curriculum, and that would look like including both structured and unstructured tasks, and or adopting cycles of reflection and debriefing throughout a WIL course. I'm now going to move on to talking about a project that was undertaken at the University of Wollongong. And just to provide a little bit of context first, this is a framework that is used across the University of Wollongong to categorise WIL experiences. So coordinators are asked to nominate through the subject outline process, whether their subject can be identified as including WIL. And that's done university-wide. The study that I'm about to talk about involves subjects that fit within predominantly the last two categories, which is applied WIL and professional WIL, which includes activities such as internships, industry projects, placements. So identifying through the research that students struggle with reflection in WIL, a number of us across the university got together as a team and decided that we were going to put together a project to transform curriculum through action research cycles. So we wanted to focus on improving reflective assessments and activities in participating academic subjects and those subjects identified as being WIL identified. So the team, we set some individual goals for improving those reflective assignments, assessments and activities, and then we implemented these changes and evaluated the student learning outcomes. So first of all, how do we do it? We drawing on WIL and reflection literature, we conducted a number of collaborative academic workshops across the university and conducted a student pilot survey. And as a result, we as a group, we developed a suite of resources to scaffold formative and summative reflective activities to engage in a more deeper reflective process by articulating and representing their learning through different modes. So the curriculum advancement itself actually transformed the learning experiences of over 2,800 students across 21 subjects. So it was quite a large project. The resources are publicly available. So we set out and we developed a suite of resources called Teaching Reflective Practice Series. And these publicly available resources, as well as explaining what we did and the models of reflection that we ended up using, we also have some videos that illustrate how and why particular models or approaches were undertaken. And that's the link there. You can have a look at that later on. So that's all available on our website. The initial data gathering from the literature and the pilot study revealed that students wanted reflection that is structured, critical, and in both informal and formal assessments. So with that in mind, these are some of the models that we implemented into our WIL subjects. So the Rolfe et al. Model, the TEE framework, the Elmer's model, and the Deal model of reflection. So when selecting these models, when we're selecting a reflection model, we chose one that fits with the context of the subject, the course, or the program that it was going to be embedded in, and so that it also then meets the learning objectives. What is distinctive and what I'd like to point out here is that each of these models have a distinct phase or component that guides students to elevate their reflective practice. So for example, in the Rolfe model, it would be the now what stage, where we're asking them what they will do differently in light of their reflections. The TEE framework, it's the experience component, where we're getting students to reflect on their personal experiences and then relate them back to theory and expectations, and so that we can then foster that forward thinking. With the Elmer's model, that would be the final stage again, which involves connecting thinking about the project with future projects or professional practice. And lastly, the Deal model, which is the articulate learning phase again, which is the end phase, where we're encouraging students to articulate what they have learned and how it was learned and why it matters. So that phase prompts students to think about how they can apply their new knowledge and insights into future situations, therefore shifting that focus, which I talked about at the beginning, from the immediate concerns to the future possibilities. So with the project, we did a pre and post survey, and we're currently still analysing some of the data, but I can share with you some of the preliminary findings around some of the qualitative reflective questions that we asked. So we asked, is reflection valuable and why, and how can educators improve reflection? So students did tell us that they did find reflection valuable because it's all about their continual growth and their professional development. And it's also about understanding those connections between the content taught and their practical experience or their placement. And how can educators improve reflection? So students told us that they really wanted they wanted us to tell them the purpose around why they're doing a reflective task, the purpose around why and how, and so that they could see that value, which would then give them the motivation to engage further. They also talked about wanting that foundational process experience around how to actually reflect before asking us to do the assessment task, which a lot of us did through our informal activities around practicing reflection in the classroom. And interestingly, a couple of students have said, give people the option of how they choose to reflect. So they wanted to have some agency there. So I'm really looking forward to some of the discussions that we will be having in the in the breakout rooms. If you're joining the reflective group, I will now pass you on to the next speaker, Teresa, and thank you for listening.
Rookie mistake, I didn't unmute, did I? So never mind, we'll get there. My name's Teresa Winchester-Cito. I've been working and researching in WIL for about 30 years. And one of the areas I'm very particularly interested in is how we can support student learning as they go through this process. So today I'm going to be talking about the what, when, why, and how of debriefing. My apologies, it appears to have been stuck. I do apologise, something seems to have gone amiss. Oh well. People do it the old-fashioned way. My apologies. What, when, where, and how I'm debriefing. The idea of what debriefing is about is a bit of a problematic one for some people. Basically, it comes down to something like this quote that we got from a research participant, where questioning comes to try and tease the depth out of it rather than keeping it at the surface level. This quote embodies a couple of different points about debriefing. One is that there are two people at least involved in this. One is the one being debriefed and one is the debriefer. And they will do that usually by questioning. And the main purpose of it is to try to get deeper than the students would normally get by themselves. So a key benefit is helping students move beyond the obvious. Indeed, we use this in particular to help students grapple with real experiences and their journey from the student to the professional. This material today I'm looking at is based on 35 interviews with 35 WIL supervisors that was written up in a paper in 2019 that myself and Anna Rowe did. So what is it and when is it used? The main features of debriefing, as I said, is that there are two people involved, and it is guided and facilitated by a debriefer, sometimes called a facilitator. Largely, it's about reviewing and reporting on an experience that the student has had. But the focus isn't only on the past. It's to try and force the focus outwards, moving forward and into the future. It's actually useful in every stage of the process that we have before, during and after of getting students through their WIL. Before sounds a bit counterintuitive because we are reporting on an experience, but you can do it on small scale activities. And the advantage of doing it in the before stages is it gives students practice so that they understand what the process is about, so that when it comes to the nitty gritty of it all, they're used to the thing and they've actually got some skills in it. Why is debriefing used? The primary purpose is to gain maximum learning from an activity. And our research has shown it's used in three ways: for academic learning, enhancing performance improvement, and reflective learning. There are many different types of strategies, but they broadly fit into three categories. The first is digging deeper, and that's using questioning to help students get further down and outwards than they would do on their own. Providing feedback, particularly on performance, most especially in medical, nursing, teaching, and so on, has been a big part of debriefing for many years. It's also available there to help process emotions, help students process emotions. This could be, for instance, related to a critical incident, some sort of catastrophic thing that's happened to the student or something that's really upset them. And in that case, what we have to do is to help the student share and process what's going on. It can be done either individually or in a group, depending on how many people were involved in the critical incident. There's also a range of positive and negative emotions that go with anybody undergoing WIL that we can help with debriefing. Again, it's a share and process system, but it can also be as simple as putting something into perspective. Students may feel, for instance, that a stray remark from a partner organisation about their work, they've interpreted extremely negatively, and we can help them actually process that and see where they are in the bigger scheme of things. The best strategy is the one that gets you to the purpose and the desired outcome that you want. So we have the group, we have the individual. There are benefits and disadvantages in both of those, and it depends on the purpose. Many actually offer both of those to students. Group, perhaps in the classroom situation, an individual for students who are struggling or who need to process emotions or have something that they're worried about. Sharing is a big part of it. It's a very powerful way of helping students navigate through the system and work out where they fit in the jigsaw. Many of the things that you read about debriefing strategies talk about the creative stimuli. So they can be photographs, they can be artworks, they could be getting students to bring photographs, they can be music, they could be dancing. Why not? Let's do dancing. It sounds wonderful. They can be a whole range of different things. And getting the debriefing started is the hardest part. So it's often useful to have those creative stimuli. But none of that's going to amount to a hill of beans if the conditions aren't right. And those conditions are that students have to feel safe and comfortable in order to be able to open up. If they feel that they're going to be judged, if they feel that they're going to be laughed at, they're not going to open up. And that's what you want them to be able to do to make the debriefing work. They also need a respectful and trusting relationship with the debriefer. And indeed, if you're doing this in a group, with anyone else who happens to be in the room. If they don't have those conditions, then it's very, very difficult for them. But largely it takes time. You're not going to be able to squeeze this into the last 5 minutes of a session. This has to be done over time in order for students to help students get down into the depths of what they're trying to find out. It also helps to do it multiple times. The first time that you do this, you'll find that it often won't work very well. And it won't work very well because the students aren't used to it, don't have the skills, don't have the trust. So the more that you do it, the better the students will get at this process. In our research, we found that there were 3 particular kinds of debrief. Well, most debriefs fell into one of these types: the feedback debrief, the specific guided debrief, and the open debrief. Now, the feedback debrief is what it says on the tin. It's where the debriefer is providing feedback to the student. The specific guided debrief is where the debriefer is usually working towards an outcome that they have specified. It might be a particular learning outcome or a particular point that they want students to get. And the open guided debrief is about guiding students, but following what they feel to be important. So you are still helping them dig deeper, but you're not the one who's actually got the goal in mind. The student, it may go all over the place for a while there, but the student is the one directing where it goes, and you are following them and helping them to get down on that. The interesting thing about these is we look at where the locus of control is. In the open guided debrief, the student is in control, but in the feedback debrief, the facilitator is fully in control. And we need to make that consideration when we're thinking about how to do the debriefing. There, of course, has to be a balance between the immediate benefits of the debrief for the particular purpose that you have in mind. But the other thing is to consider that students need to become, ultimately, autonomous and self-directed learners. We are not going to be there when they're out there in the workplace. So can we really foster the journey to being an autonomous learner if the debriefer is always in total control of the debrief? So my challenge to practitioners is to consider the degree to which the debriefer should direct and control what is discussed, and whether in certain circumstances where students have had sufficient practice, students could be encouraged to sometimes take the lead as a step towards autonomy. So that's it from me, and I'll hand over to Beate.
And I'll hand over to Bonnie.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much. It's just like a bit of a handover there. Thank you to Julia, to Laura, and to Teresa. And I am actually very curious on taking up the idea of using dance as a creative stimuli for debriefing. So I'll let you know how that goes in the future. I'm very curious to see what that might look like with some colleagues and I. Look, I do want to thank you so much for giving us great food for thought around mentoring and reflection and debriefing. What we're going to do now is go into breakout rooms. We will have 6 breakout rooms on the 3 themes that you heard today. That means there will be 2 breakout rooms per theme. So 2 in mentoring, 2 in reflection, and 2 in debriefing. And the good news is you get to choose which room you want to go into. Before I go send you away to go have a wonderful chat with each other, I do also just want to introduce our facilitators in these rooms. So we have Tanya Lawless from the University of Canberra, Narelle Payton from Charles Sturt University, Penny Kyberts from Australian National University, and if we have an extra room, it will be Kylie Twyford from University of Newcastle. Friends, we're going to have 15 minutes in these rooms where you will engage in a rich practice sharing conversation. Please